There is a new appeal from Manitoba to do more to find places for people to stay, people who have fled their communities in the wildfire emergency. And that call is coming from Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monius. He's sharing this video of people from his community being flown to safety. In a statement, Chief Monius is urging the government of Manitoba to use the Emergency Powers Act to open up hotel space. More than 17,000 people are out of their homes in the province. First Nations leaders say hotels in Winnipeg and other Manitoba cities are booked up. And right now, many evacuees are sheltering at community centres and hockey rinks. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew acknowledges the province needs to find more comfortable places for people to stay.
Let's face the facts. Nobody wants to sleep on a cot for more than a day or two, even in an emergency situation. So we're connecting folks who need those enhanced accessibility supports first, and then broadening it out to everyone else who needs help.
The Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, as he spoke at the First Minister's meeting yesterday. Now, let's bring you some more on that story. Marcy Markusa is the host of Information Radio in Winnipeg. That's on CBC Radio 1. She's about to get underway with her broadcast this morning, but giving us some time beforehand. So, Marcy, welcome, and great to have you with us today. This will be another day of huge coverage, I'm sure, for you. Can you speak to that issue? We just heard the Premier acknowledging the challenge Manitoba is facing, finding enough spaces for people who are out of their homes?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Heather. You know, it's another day where Manitobans are waking up and really wondering, if it's not enough that you have to be out of your community, now wondering maybe where you're going to be sleeping tonight or tomorrow or the next day. Some people probably haven't yet found a place. It's huge. And I think part of this is the sheer mass numbers. So you were talking about 17,000 people moving from the north to the south here. Let's remember that just a week ago, we had not yet called a state of emergency. I mean, we were broadcasting in Lac du Bonnet where a wildfire had affected that part of Manitoba. 2 people died in that fire, and sort of were in a place where we had not yet understood what was yet still to come. So in the space of a week, we have all these people moving south. And as you also mentioned, they're staying everywhere. So in past emergencies, we've seen a lot of people come to hotels here, or they've stayed at the convention center, which has not been set up for evacuees. We have some questions about that. But as you've been reporting, I mean, they're all over the place. So there are people being housed and welcomed in First Nations communities like Peguis, welcoming people from other First Nations communities, and people are grateful for that connection. But then we have people in some places in Winnipeg. We have some shelters. But then I think a lot of Manitobans are in a moment where they're asking, well, why are people in other provinces? So Niagara Falls, Portage la Prairie, Brandon. Why are people in Ontario? So that's one of the big questions that will be continue to be grappled with. And I mean, these are folks that have left so quickly with one bag, with their families, under extreme stress, maybe not understanding the gravity of what they're leaving even until they're in the air and able to look down, as we saw Adrian doing in that report, on the gravity of the smoke and what's happening and threatening their homes. So there's a lot of stress here, and really people, I think, would just like to be, for starters, if you're going to be evacuated from your home community in Manitoba, I think a lot of evacuees are asking, why can't we at least stay somewhere in Manitoba? And that's, of course, why the call came, as you outlined from David Monius, for the province to use the Emergency Measures Act and free up more space here in Winnipeg.
As you broadcast, I'm wondering, I'm sure it'd be challenging to reach some of them as they are evacuating and under those stressful circumstances. But what are you hearing from people who are out of their homes, who are hoping to find a spot and a comfortable place to stay?
I think it ranges. I mean, what's interesting is the stories that stay with you are those little snippets, right? That we've spoken to some of these people individually. I have, and then our reporters here by extension. There was a report of a man that was coming from the north, and he's elderly, he's blind. He talked about what it felt like to be sort of smelling everything and moving so quickly, and now he's here in Winnipeg and on a cot. And hearing from others that were in the city of Brandon, which is of course west of Winnipeg, and they're in their car. A couple with 3 big dogs and nowhere to stay, and what that stress is like. And then you have the stories of people who are keeping it together for their kids. I mean, a woman yesterday coming from north who her husband is partner's a firefighter, left behind in community. So she's there with 4 kids, one of them, just a baby, and trying to manage all of that stress. And now you're in an evacuation center. A lot of our show is going to be dedicated today to donations. So because of the swiftness of all this, people are trying to figure out how to help evacuees. If not, not with space, then maybe with stuff. So there's now coordination going on to get all the donation. And Manitobans have been very generous, but to get all those things like the diapers and the baby food, never mind the food for folks to eat, clothing donations. So there's a whole bunch of coordination efforts that we're going to see on that front for evacuees who are right now in what has been dubbed cot cities, at least here in Winnipeg. And I just want to revisit that question about what we're hearing from evacuees, because one of the other things that people are wondering is why they aren't having spaces freed up. There's a call sort of for, when you think of conventions, as you might have heard from previous, the chief being held in Winnipeg and others coming to Manitoba right now to sort of discuss whatever they're going to be discussing around various conferences and conventions. And then you have people displaced. There's something not sitting right for folks. But I mean, the overall mood for evacuees has really been one of like waves of trauma because of the speed of this. So a lot of people will say, I thought I was okay. We heard this a lot in Lac du Bonnet previous to the big call for the evacs from the north, the 17,000. But people saying, I thought I was okay. And then when I have a moment, I'm not. I burst into tears, or maybe I kept it together for the kids, but then I slide into sort of some shock about how long this could potentially last and what's really going on around us. So it really is an emergency of a scale that we really haven't seen here in Manitoba.
And certainly we heard that from the Premier. When Wab Kinew announced the state of emergency, he talked about this being the largest situation, largest mass evacuation as well since the Red River floods, going back to the late 90s for that. So if that is sort of how people are feeling and dealing with this crisis, how would that compare to other times Manitoba has had mass evacuations, Marcy?
Well, I think, Heather, that the benchmark, the Premier's right, and you're right, it is 1997, and I was here covering that. I worked actually in the Red River Valley covering some of the communities directly, and I flew over those valleys and worked on the ground sandbagging. But as you know, I think you might have been in Manitoba in 97 too, the numbers are similar. So 25,000 people were evacuated from the Red River Valley during the 1997 flood in Manitoba. This year we have that 17,000 number. But the speed of this creates a different kind of helplessness, because when you have a flood coming slowly, the military arrives in your province, they start to help. Neighbors start to come out, you're sandbagging. You become mobilized by trying to save communities and individual homes. And you can kind of gauge what's going on. So while it's still a shock when you're told you have to leave and if the water breaches a dike, it's a very different pace. And so now we're talking about a very different thing. We're talking about, as I said, just within a week, 17,000 people, grab a bag, you're out. You're very much in that position where, people try to imagine a fire in their own home. What would I take? How fast would I leave? What would it feel like? And now you have thousands of people that are going through that. So the speed is different, and the sense of, I think, helplessness and uncertainty is different, because getting proper information in a timely manner is difficult. Over the weekend, Flin Flon, as you know, you talked to a lot of folks out of that city. People were waiting. They heard Friday this could be, really devastating. Watching the wind shift, checking the forecast, not getting sleep, and trying to get information is a very different thing than it was during the flood situation. So I think the acuteness of this is being felt in a different way, and maybe that's why also there's a scramble for, and this is the positive, community coming together to help each other, because we didn't have that moment of, hey, I'm coming to help you sandbag. Now it becomes, where can I donate? Is there a place to volunteer? And I think in the coming days and weeks, some of those opportunities for people to come together as we really understand the sheer gravity of what's happening in Manitoba are going to become increasingly clear. So people will do what they always do in this province. They'll forge forward, but they need some answers about what is going to happen. And 97 people stayed at the convention center, by the way, Heather. It's sort of the first time we really haven't seen that. And we've also seen that in previous times as well. Because remember, these folks in northern Manitoba and many of these communities, they're no strangers to being evacuated due to fires. It's just the sheer scale of this and the number of fires going on at the same time. That's the part that we haven't seen in this province.
Okay, Marcy, I'm just delighted to feature this conversation. Thank you for all of that information and really helping us understand so much of the detail as you live it and cover it. And if it's not too much of an imposition, we'd love to have you back again. So we'll stay in touch. But thank you very much. Best of luck in that broadcast today as you focus on donations. Marcy Markusa, who is the host in Winnipeg in Manitoba.